Someone want to explain to me how this isn't all over the news? Like, seriously, how is this story not everywhere?
With loss after a gunman shot and killed 2 people in a parking lot of Harris Teeter.
If this had been a full-on mass shooting with a double-digit body count, the media would be running nonstop coverage calling for more gun control. But because an armed citizen stopped it, silence. It's almost like they don't want you to know that this two-way shit works.
20 seconds. That's how long police say it took an off-duty federal agent to react to the shooting, draw their own weapon, and shoot and kill the man police say already had shot 2 people.
Andre Morgan lives in Crozet, a couple minutes away from the Harris Teeter. He was in the lobby of Augusta Health, right across from the grocery store, when he heard gunfire Monday afternoon.
One of the nurses said, "What's that?" And I just said kind of quietly, "That's gunshots."
Police say the suspected gunman, 28-year-old Justin Barber of Crozet, entered this parking lot and used an AR-15 style rifle to fatally shoot 2 people.
Some lunatic with an AR-15 shot 2 people. Then an off-duty federal agent who was just shopping like everyone else drew his personal firearm and stopped him in 20 seconds. Now, I already know what some people are going to say. Well, he was a federal agent. That's different. No, it's not. He wasn't on duty. He wasn't in uniform. He was just another armed civilian. If a regular person had been in that parking lot with a gun and had done the exact same thing, would it be any different? No, it's the same principle. The only reason this played out the way it did was because someone with the gun was there to stop the shooter. This was not a gun-free zone, meaning anyone could have carried there. This agent didn't have some magical privilege that let him be armed while others couldn't. This wasn't some special forces mission. He was just a trained person with a gun who did what needed to be done. And yet, this barely gets covered. If the shooter had killed more people, the anti-gun crowd would be blaming AR-15s or so-called assault weapons and saying it's all Trump's fault. But when a gun stops a mass shooting, they don't want to talk about that. Then you have the Army veteran in a news clip saying he felt completely helpless. And that's the key point here. If you're unarmed, there's nothing you can do. Training doesn't matter if you're facing a guy with a rifle and you have nothing. The reason he felt helpless was because he was helpless. And that's exactly why we fight for the right to carry a damn gun.
Morgan served in the Army for 6 years, but his training could not compare to something like this.
Nothing in the world I could have prepared me to react to this. I stood there watching in absolute shock, and I think it was my brain just saying, this is Crozet. This is Harris Teeter and Crozet. This can't be real. This doesn't happen here.
The pathetic thing about this is that even when you look at the news stories covering this incident, it was either centrist news outlets or the right. No major left-leaning outlet covered this. Someone want to explain that to me? And the only reason I know this is because I use Ground News. When I was checking to see if this would get picked up, I went straight to Ground News. I've been using it for over a year now to track how stories are being covered, whether they're balanced, swayed in one direction, or completely ignored. Ground News isn't like the usual news apps that shove biased headlines in your face. Instead, they show you how different news sources are covering the same story. So you can actually see the bias in real time. With their blind spot feature, you can literally see what stories are being ignored by the left and the right. Their bias distribution tool shows you whether an article is leaning left, right, or centrist. So you're not just swallowing whatever narrative the media puts in front of you. And the best part, their Google Chrome extension lets you instantly compare headlines across different sources while you're browsing the web. So next time you see a news story, you can check if it's being spun differently somewhere else, like when 2 people tell you the same story, but one conveniently leaves out the part where they messed up. Don't just take my word for it. Go to ground.news/Colion to subscribe. If you use my link, you'll get 40% off of the Vantage subscription, which gives you unlimited access to all of these features. By subscribing, you're getting a better way to read the news, and you're also supporting my work directly. Again, that's ground.news/Colion. Click the link in the description, subscribe, and start seeing both sides of the news. Look, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Mass shooters pick places where people think they're safe. Because when people feel safe, they don't prepare, they don't carry, and that's exactly what these lunatics count on.
Just 20 seconds of shooting had elapsed before the off-duty federal agent who heard the gunfire and was exiting Harris Teeter engaged the shooter with their personal weapon.
If this had turned into a massacre, the media would have been all over it. But because it was stopped by a good guy with a gun, they ignore it. That tells you everything you need to know. They don't actually care about saving lives. They care about pushing an agenda. At the end of the day, this proves what gun owners have been saying forever. When seconds matter, the police are minutes away. And if you're lucky, someone with a gun will be there to stop the threat. This agent wasn't a superhero. He wasn't special forces. He was just a guy with a gun who knew how to use it. And that could be anyone. It could be me. It could be you. But if the anti-gun crowd had their way, the agent wouldn't have had a gun in the first place. And then we'd be talking about a much higher body count. That's the reality. And that's why I'll never stop fighting for the right to defend ourselves. Because clearly, if the media isn't going to highlight these stories, it's up to us to make sure people know the truth. And if you carry a gun or you're thinking about carrying, there are 7 things you need to do before you leave the house. Because carrying a gun isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. And if you don't take these steps, you're setting yourself up for failure. So if you're serious about protecting yourself and doing it the right way, check out my video on the 7 things to do before carrying a gun. You can click the link somewhere or thing will pop up somewhere. Just go watch the video, go check it out. And I'm gonna get a tissue because right now my allergies are kicking my ass, I'm struggling.